Sixth grade, welcome to the final chapter in history. Chapter 26, it's entitled Building Today's World. We're going to get these last four lessons, guys, and what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of go through each continent and talk about the struggles and things coming out of World War II. So 1948 into the present time. The introduction says this: on a chilly November night in 2008, Barack Obama stood in front of a cheering crowd in Chicago's Grant Park. He had just been elected President of the United States. Speaking to the nation, Obama called on Americans to work together to address two wars, a planet in peril, and the worst financial crisis in a century. He also invited the rest of the world to join the effort. Our stories are singular, he said, but our destiny is shared. In other words, we each have our own unique story, but we all have the ultimate goals of living on this world. To the global community, Obama issued a warning and a promise. To those who tear down the world, we will defeat you. To those who seek peace and security, we support you. And guys, number one, he hit a number of things on the head. In 2008, we were in a major financial crisis. We were definitely fighting a number of wars, the war on terrorism, and we have not stopped a planet in peril. In other words, our environment is still a problem. And I like how he's trying to unify the world here, right? Hey, we got to be in this together. And he also understands the enemies. So you're going to fight against us, we're going to come after you, right? You want to work with us, we will support you. And obviously, we always want that to happen. And he started it in Chicago, guys, because that's where he was from. So we will definitely talk about America in this chapter, along with a lot of other ones. Cruising on in time and place as we hopefully get to our map here, you can see this is a population map, guys. They're showing the countries with more than 1 billion. Today it's India and China have more than 1 billion people. More than 100 million to less than 1 billion. You can see that we have America, Brazil, and Russia. Pakistan has a lot of people, and I believe this is Nigeria, Indonesia. And then you have going down from there, including some countries, guys, that have less than 1 million people, like Greenland. 1 million to 10 million, not very many people. You think about in America, we have cities that have more than 10 million people. All right, got your timeline there, things we'll be talking about. Let's get cruising on lesson 1 today. Lesson 1 is going to talk about the challenges in Latin America. And you can see by the map, guys, what they consider Latin America today and then the main exports that come out of it. So Latin America is pretty much South America into Central America. Or another way to think of it, Latin America is all the Americas minus Canada and the United States. Let's get rolling. We're trying to answer this question: how do governments change and developments in Latin America affect the U.S. trade and immigration? So we're going to see a lot of work by the U.S. in this one. Most of Latin America's countries won freedom in the 1800s. In these lands, rich landowners and business people controlled the social and the political life. Poor farmers and workers had little power. Kind of a theme in ancient history, tragically. During the late 1800s, Latin American countries depended on farming and mining. At this time, the United States and other industrial powers took control of Latin America's raw materials. Business people from overseas exported Latin American goods such as sugar, coffee, beef, copper, and oil. So they came in, guys, and they shipped these products out. That's what an export is. As export rose, some Latin American countries relied on only 1 or 2 key products. As the demand for these products rose, profits increased. But whenever demand decreased, the prices dropped. And then the businesses closed and workers lost their job. So it sounds, hey, you got some products, that's really good. But guys, when you only have 1 or 2 products, if the 1 or 2 products are going great, you're loving it. But if those products go down, you're in a world of hurt because you don't have enough other things to be able to help you out. So you want to be diversified. In other words, America doesn't want to be known for just oil and all we have is oil. because if the need for oil ever goes down, then we're in a world of hurt. Latin America's reliance on exports brought benefits too. So guys, we rely too much on exports. Might help you with number 6 on your worksheet. But there are some benefits. Foreign investors built ports, they built roads, they built railroads, they built factories. Cities grew and a middle class developed. Still, the wealthy remained powerful and most of them struggled to make a living. So we want to bring in some good things, but it's just so we can get these exports. So whoever owned the land made it rich. Whoever didn't continues to suffer. During the 1900s, the United States greatly influenced Latin America. This was partly due to the U.S. victory in the Spanish-American War in 1898. At the war's end, Spain gave the United States control of the Caribbean island of Puerto Rico. Okay? In 1903, Panama, we talked about this, with the U.S. help, won their freedom from Colombia. So they used to be one country. They won their freedom. Why did we help Panama? In return, Panama allowed the United States to build the Panama Canal. Why did the United States build it? So that we could trade from our east coast to our west coast. So we had the gold rush in 1849 in California. What were we doing with the gold? We were trying to ship it by train all the way across. And we said, man, let's get by boat. And instead of sailing all the way around, we cut right through. So we built that thing. Over the next 30 years, U.S. troops were sent to guard these interests in the Caribbean area. Meanwhile, American companies grew in Latin America. The United Fruit Company owned land, railroads, and fruit packing plants in Central America. U.S. companies also ran copper mines in Chile and oil wells in Mexico. So America's starting to make it big as we get invested down here. Many Latin Americans feared this growing American influence. To improve U.S. ties with Latin America, President FDR announced the Good Neighbor policy after he became president. He becomes president in 1932, and by 1932 he says, let's be good neighbors. What does this mean? Under this policy, the United States agreed to settle any disputes peacefully and to aid the region's economies. So what Roosevelt said is, guys, we will work with you. Are there going to be arguments? You bet. But what we won't do is we will not send our army down here. Now, guys, they love that idea because America has the most powerful army out there. And so Mexico wasn't going to pick a fight with us by itself. Mexico might try to join all of these people, maybe, but that would be the only way. So it was actually the United States saying, guys, we will not be the big bully who just takes all our land because we can. We will work things out peacefully. And hint, hint, it might be in your best advantage to work things out peacefully with us. After World War II, agriculture was important in Latin America. Manufacturing, however, continued to grow there. Multinational corporations supplied some of this funding. That might help you with a number 7. Latin American leaders wanted to speed up economic progress. To get the needed funds, they turned to foreign banks. This borrowing, though, weakened Latin American economies, creating a debt crisis that we found about in the 1980s. Within a decade, these economies had improved. So guys, they borrowed too much, couldn't pay back, and we had a crisis. We need to fix that crisis and make some changes. They were able to do those things to stabilize their government. The debt crisis helped build democracy in some countries. Latin Americans had to make difficult changes to improve their economies. Several Latin American countries overthrew dictators and became democratic. Today, Latin American democracies face major challenges. The region's population is growing very rapidly, but the resources are limited. In other words, we can't even feed them. The divide between rich and poor creates some serious social unrest. In addition, a growing trade in drugs has increased crime and corruption, and we'll talk all about that, guys. Those are problems that are getting into America at a huge high level. All right. Let's go through this. In the 1900s, a few wealthy people largely controlled the Caribbean and Central America. Rebels, usually based in the countryside, fought against this powerful group. The rebels' goal was to improve the lives of the many people who were still poor. After the Spanish-American War, Cuba became independent. However, during much of the 1900s, military dictators ruled the country. American companies held most of Cuba's wealth, based on sugar and mining. In '59, Fidel Castro, a young lawyer, carried out a revolution and he set up a new government. Instead of forming a democracy, Castro made Cuba the first communist nation in the Americas. Okay, so all of these countries, guys, might have dictators, might have democracies, but they didn't have communism. So we're in the middle of the Cold War now, right, that we talked about last chapter, and here comes Cuba. As a dictator, he drew Cuba close to the Soviet Union. Castro's government controlled the economy and the society. It nationalized or made the government owner of American property in Cuba. This move damaged Cuba's ties with the United States. So in the '60s, the U.S. placed a partial trade embargo against Cuba. What's an embargo? A trade embargo is a ban on trading with another nation. So we said, Cuba, we're cutting you off. We're not trading with you. We also would then say, if I want to make this bigger, hey, I want others to put an embargo on you. So that's one of your vocabulary words, guys, that you need on your top, along with Fidel Castro that you just met. In April of '61, Cubans, with U.S. support, tried and failed to overthrow Castro. This loss forced the United States to widen its trade embargo. The loss of trade, clumsy government planning, and poor harvest ruined Cuba's economy. So what we try to do, guys, is we try to take Castro out. We gave guns to the rebels who tried to overthrow him, and it failed. So it was bad on our part. Many Cubans fled to the United States. Most of these immigrants settled in Florida. Meanwhile, Castro continued to rely on the Soviet Union, and that's where we had the Cuban Missile Crisis that we talked about in the last chapter. In '91, the Soviet Union fell, and Cuba lost its major source of trade and aid. Despite Cuba's weak economy, Castro stayed in power until he became too ill to rule. In 2008, he passed it to his brother Raul, who took over and began starting to make a few changes. So guys, if you can imagine that, in '59 he starts, Fidel Castro rules for almost 50 years in Cuba under the same dictator. All right, that's Cuba. Haiti's problems. In Haiti, which is another Caribbean republic, dictators have often ruled and ignored the citizens' right. In '57, Francois Duvalier was elected president. Once he got in office, he became a dictator who used terror to govern the country. When he died in '71, his son, Jean-Claude Duvalier, also ruled harshly until the military overthrew him in '86. In '90, Haitians elected the reformer. His name is Jean-Bertrand Aristide as president. The military overthrew him the next year. With the U.S. help, though, Aristide returned to power in '94, but was removed again in 2004. Haiti remains poor, and its people face many hardships. Then in 2010, a strong earthquake leveled much of Port-au-Prince, which is the capital, killing thousands of people. Despite help from all over the world, Haiti is still suffering for months after the disaster. Guys, Haiti is literally the poorest country almost in the world. It's definitely the poorest Caribbean country. It is attached to the Dominican Republic, so half of this little island is Dominican Republic, half it's Haiti. Haiti, super poor. Dominican Republic, doing pretty good. Because Dominican Republic, better relationships with the world, more tourism. Okay, Haiti, troubled past, not very good, very poor, not taking care of its people. Central America. During the '70s and '80s, civil wars divided Central America. Cuba's Fidel Castro wanted to spread communism throughout Latin America. The United States was determined to stop him. So, step one, Nicaragua. Little island little piece of land in here. In Nicaragua, Sandinista rebels overthrew the dictator whose name is Anastasio Somoza. in 79. Nicaraguans called Contras opposed the Sandinistas. The U.S. helped the Contras fight the Sandinista forces. In the 90s, the Sandinistas lost power when Violeta Chamorro was elected Nicaragua's first woman president. Chamorro remained in office until 97. In 2006, voters elected a Sandinista government. So we helped the one side. A little bit later, that side's back. And you can see America is helping out in a lot of things, guys. As you get older and you think about voting, you'll have to say, do I like it that America helps out in these places, or should America mind its own business and stay just in the United States? Guys, it's not an easy answer because a lot of countries depend on us for help, and we get great relationships when we help them. Okay, Guatemala, you can see another piece of land in here, was also torn apart by civil war. Once again, the U.S. support, Guatemala's government battled the rebels from 60 to 96, 36 years. In that course of time, 200,000 people died, and the economy was obviously in trouble as we have a lot of warfare with civil war going on. Panama prospered because of the Panama Canal. In 1999, the U.S. simply gave the canal back to Panama. Panama benefits because it charges the ships fees to use the canal. The canal also brings a ton of trade that made Panama a major banking center. Okay, so Panama has figured out how to make money, and most of it is just because the United States gave them their canal because it's theirs and they charge people to go through it. And because it saves so much time, it's literally would have cost me way more money in gas and time than it would cost me no matter what you charge me to cruise through the canal. Challenges in Mexico. Mexico is U.S.'s closest southern neighbor, obviously. After 1945, after World War II, Mexico set up new industries and its economy grew. The government also improved life for Mexico's people. Despite these efforts, we faced some challenges. Let's see the challenges. In the early 1900s, the dictator, whose name is Porfirio Diaz, ruled Mexico. Foreign investments benefited the wealthy. Peasants and the workers faced the hardships. In 1911, reformers overthrew him, and a revolution swept Mexico. In 1917, a new constitution set up a government led by a strong president. Guys, remember, if you remember in World War I, from 1914 to 1918, they tried to get Mexico to attack America. They didn't. Why? One, they didn't think they could. Two, they're also going through their own problems right now. During the 20s, Mexico was officially democratic. However, only one political party, which is the Institutional Revolutionary Party, was allowed to win elections. So that would be like what we've talked about. Okay, in America, we're going to have a democracy, but you can only be a Democrat to run. Well, that's not really a democracy, guys, because you only got one political party. Mexican voters elected their leaders from this party. In the 1930s, a social reform swept Mexico. President Lázaro Cárdenas, which is one of your choices on your worksheet, guys, gave property to landless peasants. He also nationalized foreign-owned oil wells. This action angered the owners, but most Mexicans approved. In other words, we angered the wealthy, but most of these people are poor and think that's a great reform. Mexico's oil industry made gains after World War II. To build new industries, Mexico borrowed money from other countries. Then the oil prices fell in the 80s, and this created a huge economic hardship. Okay? Mexico's weakened economy cost the Institutional Revolutionary Party much of its support. So in 2000, Vicente Fox was elected president. He was the first leader in 70 years who came from a different political party. Despite the high hopes, Fox could not end police and government corruption. So guys, when you have only one political party, there's corruption because there's nobody to check it. So if we have, let's say, a Democratic government right now and we don't like the changes, then we vote Republican. If we don't like the Republican government, we vote changes and we go Democrat, right? But if there's only one party, I become corrupt because you can't get rid of me. So we finally elect a new person, but man, it's so hard to change the old system, and we have all this corruption there. In 2006, Felipe Calderon became president. He launched an army attack on Mexico's powerful drug gangs. Meanwhile, Mexico boosted its international trade. In '92, it signed what's called the North American Free Trade Agreement, which is known as NAFTA. That's number 8 in your notes, guys. It signed it with the United States and Canada. Under NAFTA, Mexico built new industries. Many U.S. and other foreign companies have built what are called mangorillas in Mexico. These are factories. Workers assemble products using foreign-made parts, and the finished products are then exported. So in other words, I bring in parts from all over the world, and in the factories, the Mexican workers will put them together. That's how they make the money. They just assemble them. They don't necessarily make them from scratch. Those products come in. Under NAFTA, we can start to do this free trade, guys, so we're not going to put taxes on it. Despite these factories, many Mexicans cannot find jobs. Many have become migrant workers. These people, migrant workers, are people who migrate or travel to find work. Some migrant workers help plant and harvest crops. They legally and sometimes illegally enter the United States. Although the work does not pay well, migrant workers can earn more in the United States than in Mexico. So guys, immigration is one of the things we struggle with as America, what to do. A lot of people are coming into America illegally. Some of them are migrant workers. In other words, they travel to plant and harvest crops. And we need those workers, is literally what it comes down to. And why do we do that? Because if you look right here, the work does not pay well. And so it goes like this, guys. In America, we have minimum wage, which says you must pay people a certain set wage. But guys, those are only citizens. So if I have a migrant worker who's here illegally, I can pay whatever he agrees to pay. And if it's less than what it wants, there's really nothing he can do about it because he's here illegally. Even if they're here legally, guys, many times because they're migrant workers, we pay them cash. And then there's no tax record of it, so there's nothing to go on. It's a major problem our government needs to discuss and figure out. So, guys, the immigration is a battle. We talked about building a wall down there so they can't come in illegally. Some people believe we should let them in. Some people believe we shouldn't let them in. It's another one of those things that you will have to decide how you feel about it and how we can go about it. I don't like it that they're here illegally. I don't like the word illegal. But I don't like how difficult we make it to let them get here legally. So in my mind, what we've done is we've made it too difficult to come legally, so they just figure it out illegally. Well, okay, America, try to fix that problem. If you want them here legally, figure out how we can get them here legally. It's a lot of hoops to jump through. I don't have the answer, guys. That's why I'm not a politician. Something we need to understand. During most of the 1900s, South America was a region of contrast. Cities had wealthy neighborhoods as well as sprawling slums. New industries arose, but many peasants still farmed. Governments were officially republics, but dictators ruled with the support of the wealthy. So you can see how it goes back and forth. We look like we have super wealthy neighborhoods and then the not so wealthy. Good businesses, still peasants farming. Sweet republics run by dictators. So those are the challenges as we go back and forth. Cruising more into South America. During much of the 1900s, military leaders ruled Argentina. Then Juan Perón, which is also in your matching on the top, became president in '46. Perón, with his wife Eva, tried to improve the economy. He raised workers' wages, but his disregard of basic freedoms angered many people. In '55, a military revolt overthrew him. In '76, a new military group took power. In '82, Argentina fought Britain over the Falkland or Malvina Islands. Argentina's defeat in that war was a blow to the Argentine military. The country was able to become democratic. In 2007, Cristina Fernandez became Argentina's first elected woman president. Like Argentina, Brazil struggled to build democracy. During the 30s, dictator Getulio Vargas set up a government-run industries. He raised the wages and he allowed workers to form labor unions to get what they needed. After Vargas, though, Brazil tried a democracy. In '64, the military took control. 20 years later, democracy came back. Recently, Brazil's economy has greatly improved. Mining, logging, and farming in the Amazon forest, however, has led to deforestation, which is the cutting of forests without replanting it. Other nations have convinced Brazil to protect part of the rainforest. So, guys, Brazil is the country that is, making some money. But how they did it, their main product is the logging industry in the Amazon rainforest. And so what they did here, I'll go back to what we're talking about here. So this is Brazil making it big. This is the Amazon rainforest up here. So they went in there and they started sawing down the trees, selling the lumber, making a ton of money. Life is great, except they're not planting those trees back. So then other countries have to come in and say, Brazil, you got to stop that. We need the rainforest. And Brazil says, that's awesome. Then figure out how to give us the money we're making from this rainforest. And so what we really have to do is we have to have Brazil find other ways to make money. If not, guys, as Americans, I can't say stop cutting down the rainforest in Brazil. I don't own the rainforest in Brazil. Brazil can do whatever Brazil wants. Now, do I want the rainforest? You bet I do. So we have to work with them to try to set it up. And a lot of that is just helping them make other businesses so that they can generate their money, guys, without cutting down the rainforest. During most of the 1900s, Chile was the region's most stable democracy, might be number 10. In 1970, Salvador Allende was elected president. Allende nationalized industry, raised wages, and gave land to the poor. Unhappy with the reforms, the military removed him from power in '73. So guys, anytime we make changes, in my mind, good changes, right? Get industry, give better wages, give land to poor people, anger the rich and powerful, and the rich and powerful take you out. Chile's next president was Augusto Pinochet. He was a ruthless dictator. In 1990, he was forced to resign. A free trade agreement with the United States in 2004 boosted Chile's economy. 2 years later, voters elected Michelle Bachelet as the country's first woman president. And finally, Venezuela and Colombia. In '45, Venezuela relied on oil as its major source of wealth. That was great for a number of years. Venezuela was living the high life because everybody wanted oil. The country suffered when oil prices fell in 1990s. In '98, Venezuelans elected a former military leader, Hugo Chavez, as president. Chavez's rule split Venezuela into opposing groups. Meanwhile, Chavez tried to spread his influence overseas. He became friendly with Cuba's leaders and often criticized the United States. In other words, does America like him? No. He was buddy-buddy with the communists and kind of wanted to make his country communist. Now, guys, today, Venezuela has switched to socialists, and we usually look at that and say, Venezuela has fallen apart. Be careful. Don't become too socialist, is what some people in the United States say. Other people say the exact opposite. In Colombia, conflict between rival political groups in the mid-1900s caused about 300,000 deaths. Then in the 70s, rebel forces began fighting the government. Today, rebel groups still control part of the country. In other words, they are not a united country, guys. They have a government that kind of stays out of certain parts because the rebels there cause problems. Since the 1980s, the drug trade has been very powerful in Colombia. Instead of growing coffee, poor farmers raise and sell more profitable coca bean leaves to drug dealers. The leaves are then used to make the illegal drug cocaine. With U.S. help, Colombia's government has tried to break the power of the drug dealers. However, there has been little success. So guys, most of the drugs flying into the United States is coming out of Colombia, and we just do not have the answer. Some of it is coming literally by boat, some of it is coming by plane, some of it is coming through land. There are tons of Mexican drug cartels as well, and we can't stop it. Part of it is the United States is a major buyer of it, and so it's hard to stop it. It's everywhere, and it's not an easy thing. And so we've had the war on drugs since the 1980s. 40 years later, drugs are still illegal and drugs are still everywhere. And so that is one of the major problems we are trying to take on. And I have no idea what the answer is or if we will ever win the battle on it. It'll just forever be an ongoing thing. Okay, we took out pretty much the Americas today as we look at issues that is being faced in the countries still today. You can see America has played a role in a lot of these countries. What America tries to do is establish a democracy that we want to work and trade with. Sometimes successful, sometimes not so much. All right, 6, have a blessed Friday.